my name is Kaden Sharpley, and the goal of my project was to improve my ability to juggle a soccer ball using only my left foot. I chose this because juggling is a complex coordination task that involves rhythm, timing, and dynamic control. By isolating my non dominant foot, I aimed to test how adapting to new constraints could drive skill, learning through self organization and neural adaptation. Soccer juggling is an open, continuous skill where every touch requires adjustment based on the ball's flight. It demands fine control of foot angle, force, and timing to maintain the ball in motion. For the non-dominant foot, this is harder because proprioception and coordination are less refined. So, any improvement here would clearly represent motor learning, not just strength gains. My training program was guided by the constraint-led approach. The CLA views learning as an emergent process shaped by the interaction of organismic constraints, my leg strength, coordination, asymmetry, and attentional focus, environmental constraints of surface type, lighting, and available space, and task constraints, the size and the rule of using my left foot only. By manipulating these constraints, I created opportunities for self-organization, letting my body explore multiple coordination solutions and stabilize around an efficient pattern. Previous research supports this design. Non-dominant limb training improves bilateral motor control through cross-education effects where learning transfers between hemispheres. Similarly, variable practice, where practice conditions change, enhances movement adaptability by broadening perceptual motor experience. Studies in soccer also show that manipulating task and environmental conditions improve perceptual motor coupling and decision making. Together, this supports using a constraint-rich variable practice program to optimize learning outcomes. Based on this framework, my hypothesis was a progressive 20-hour variable practice program manipulating task and environmental constraints will improve left foot juggling performance, shown through increases in consecutive touches, more consistent rhythm, and better adaptability under new conditions. So, overall, I expect measurable improvements in touch count, timing, stability, and transfer performance when tested under altered constraints. To evaluate whether constraint manipulation could improve my left foot juggling, I designed a 20-hour training program completed over 5 weeks. The program was divided into 4 progressive phases. Week 1, exploration, with the discovery of movement solutions. Weeks 2 to 3 was about stability, refining consistent contact and rhythm. Week 4 was about adaptability, with variable practice with altered constraints. And week 5 was testing, the post and transfer test. Each week consisted of 4 one-hour sessions plus a short reflective log after each session to document results. To assess learning, I used 3 structured performance tests. The pre-test, which was the average touches of consecutive juggles before the ball drops within a 60-second time frame, averaging results from 3 attempts, taking best score from each attempt. The post-test and the transfer test were the same as this. However, the transfer test uses an AFL ball and on a firm surface in barefoot. These tests capture both quantitative change, touch count duration, and qualitative technique adaptation, consistency and control. Video was used to watch the small changes in technique of juggling. Across training, I systematically manipulated organismic, environmental, and task constraints. For organismic, there was a fatigue variation after training with focused tasks. For environmental, we had different surfaces of grass, different lighting, and flat, hard ground. And for the task, the soccer ball changed size as well as using an AFL ball in the transfer test. This structure follows the CLA principle of representativeness, maintaining authentic perception-action coupling while still promoting exploration. Its purpose was to encourage self-organization under internal stress, promote adaptability and perception-action coupling, and increase information-movement coupling and attentional flexibility. The practice program design. The full program emphasized variable practice and self-guided discovery rather than repetition of one pattern. In week 1, I discovered foot-to-ball contact options through different footwear in socks, boots, and shoes. So as you can see in this video, I'm in socks. In weeks 2 to 3, I developed consistent rhythm with the same soccer ball, mimicking my tests, so keeping it to 60-second sets. In week 4, I responded to changing constraints. I started by dropping the ball and letting it bounce back up to me and tried different surfaces like a flat ground. And in week 5, I retested to assess learning and analyze results from the pre, post, and transfer tests. To ensure reliability, all sessions were performed under similar environmental conditions when possible and logged in a training diary. After completing the 5-week training program, I compared my pre-test, post-test, and transfer test results. Performance was measured as the average number of consecutive juggles completed within the left with the left foot in 60 seconds. This metric reflects control, coordination, stability, and perceptual motor coupling, core indicators of learning under the constraints-led approach. Here in Figure 1, you can see the results. My average juggle count increased from 12 touches in the pre-test to 25.7 in the post-test, showing a clear improvement in performance over the training period. When performing the transfer test with a tennis ball on a firm surface, my average dropped to 4.3 touches. This pattern illustrates substantial learning in the trained condition and partial skill transfer under the new constraint. The improvements from pre to post test suggest more efficient control and rhythm, whereas the drop in the transfer test reflects the added difficulty of manipulating a smaller, faster rebounding object. Despite the reduced score, maintaining several controlled contacts under those conditions demonstrates functional adaptability rather than regression. All videos were filmed from a front-on for consistency. Across the footage, I appeared calmer and more composed in the post-test compared to the pre-test. Initially, I was more frantic, using short, quick kicks that kept the ball below waist high. By the post-test, my movements were smoother and slower, and I began keeping the ball higher, around waist to chest level. This change gave me more reaction time between touches and better rhythm. These improvements reflect self-organization and the development of a more stable coordination pattern or attractor state. In the transfer test, although my touches decreased, I adapted my technique to the different shaped ball, which also moved differently, highlighting adaptability under new task environmental constraints. Overall, the quantitative data and qualitative footage together show that constraint manipulation effectively enhanced my left foot juggling performance and promoted adaptable coordination. The findings align with the CLA principles that learning emerges through exploration, self-organization, and the ability to adapt movement solutions to changing environments. In this section, I'll discuss my results in light of the constraints-led approach, reflect on how the program supported skill learning and adaptability, and consider the strengths and limitations of my project. My overall findings showed a significant improvement in left foot juggling ability, with the average number of consecutive juggles increasing from 12 to 25 across 5 weeks, and an expected reduction to 4.3 during the transfer test with the AFL ball. These outcomes reflect the process of self-organization and movement adaptation described by the constraints-led approach. According to the CLA, learning emerges through the interaction of individual, environmental, and task constraints rather than through repetition of a fixed technique. Throughout my program, manipulating these constraints created opportunities for exploration and problem solving, leading to the discovery of more effective movement solutions. For example, in week 1, I compared juggling with socks versus boots, an organismic constraint that altered proprioceptive feedback. In later weeks, practicing in different environments such as a firm floor indoors changed environmental constraints, affecting rebound height and ball control. These manipulations align with the CLA principle of representing learner design, ensuring the task remains similar to real-world coordination challenges. The improvement in my juggle count and the observed calmer, smoother technique show that I was able to self-organize around an efficient coordination pattern. This supports the idea that movement variability isn't an error, it's a mechanism for exploring and stabilizing functional performance. Okay, so these clips, the one on the left is me juggling in the pre-test, and the one on the right is me in the post-test. So, by the post-test, I displayed less frantic body movement, higher ball trajectory, and more consistent timing between touches. Keeping the ball higher allowed more reaction time and smoother rhythm, indicating greater perceptual attunement, the ability to interpret ball flight and adjust movement accordingly. This progression illustrates how learners stabilize their coordination through experience, developing adaptable control rather than rigid movement patterns. In this clip, I'm performing my transfer test where I changed to an AFL ball. My transfer test using an AFL ball further demonstrated adaptability under new task constraints. The oval shape and unpredictable bounce off my foot forced a reorganization of my technique. Although performance decreased, I maintained several consecutive touches showing functional adaptability, the capacity to achieve task goals despite altered conditions. This supports David et al.'s 2008 argument that skill should be viewed as a dynamic process of adjusting to constraints rather than the replication of a single ideal technique. It also illustrates the concept of degeneracy, where different movement patterns can produce the same successful outcome. There were several strengths and limitations in this project. A key strength was the progressive manipulation of multiple constraints, which kept practice challenging and engaging. Another strength was combining both quantitative and qualitative analysis. The data showed measurable improvements, and the visual evidence highlighted how coordination evolved. However, the study had limitations. First, it only used one participant, myself, so results can't be generalized. Second, filming from a single front-on angle limited biomechanical analysis of movement patterns. Future research could include multiple RUP participants, 3D analysis, or follow-up retention tests to evaluate learning durability. To conclude, this 5-week program demonstrated and manipulating constraints in practice led to measurable improvements in left foot juggling performance. The results show that the learning emerged through self-organization, exploration, and variability, supporting the key principles of the constraints-led approach. While performance decreased when switching to an AFL ball, the ability to maintain control and adapt under new constraints indicates transferable skill learning and growth movement patterns. Overall, this project highlights how coaches and athletes can use constraint manipulation to design effective representative practice environments that promote creativity, problem solving, and long-term skill development. And there's a reference list.